Shalom. Kal Halayim La, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakat Kudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, to the Akim doing the work in truth and sincerity, as well as a few Akwat that listen and learn. This is Brother Shawar with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. And this lesson I want to deal with the topic of discussion, going on about pretty much this Ronald Dalton, I think Ronald Dalton documentary, the one that Kyrie Irving had reposted, the Hebrews to Negros. And now it's coming out that pretty much this documentary, it goes off on a lot of things. The only thing really that, that's pushed that is true is, of course, the so-called Negros are Israelites. The Southern Kingdom, the Negros, the so-called West Indians and the so-called Hatians, which were the primary slaves, or the not even the primary, well, they were the primary slaves because there was some Northern Kingdom as well in the transatlantic slave trade, but that's what is shown in the forefront is the Southern Kingdom being a part of that. And that's true. Of course, we know so-called Negroes, yes, we are Israelites, but it also doesn't go into the Northern Kingdom being Israelites, the Latin tribes, the Native Americans. It also doesn't go into the names Yahweh, while Yahweh Shai are not mentioned. And it also is, the main thing I want to get into right now is this African thing. It's pushing that spirit of Jake being African, like we go back to, like our forefathers are African and the motherland is Africa and all this madness. And I'm going to use scripture and a couple of receipts to prove that to be wrong. But, we're not Africans, man. The so-called Negroes are not Africans. Those are Hamitic people. They come from Ham. We come from Shem. It's, I use the example all the time. And, the brother that brought me into the truth, he tell me this all the time. He used to be like, you got to think of, he said the example he used is think of Japanese and Chinese people. They look similar, and you may think, you may look at one and think, oh, this is Japanese, this person's Japanese or Chinese, but they're really the opposite. But they're two different lines of people. And it's even more, to me, not even to me, but it's more distinguishable who's an Israelite or who's a so-called Negro and who's an African, when you're talking about in the purest form. We don't even really look like them, it's much different. But nonetheless, we have similar traits, but we're two different lines of people. And the scriptures let us know that the Lord put a difference between the so-called Africans and the so-called Negroes. Those are Hamites. Those are not, the Hamites are, what you call your so-called Africans, Ethiopians, those Sudanese people, because those Sudanese people are your real Egyptians going back to ancient Egypt. So those are Hamitic people. Those are Hamites. We are not of that same stock, man. We are Israelites. And we have a much different spirit. So to start out, I want to deal with this thing of the motherland, because everybody says, and this is kind of what Jake learned. We grew up learning this, that Africa is the motherland of us all. Like, everybody originates from Africa, and that's not true. So let's read it. This is Galatians 4:26, and it reads, "But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all." So Jerusalem, the land of Israel, is ultimately the homeland. Going back to the Garden of Eden, right? That's where Salakia, it's the homeland for the Israelites, but I meant to say the motherland. quote unquote. That's the true motherland. It's Israel, not Africa. Africa is not, that's pretty much, it's just a way of Esau using that to confuse and further pull Jake away from who they really are. The Hamites sold us to, these Edomites, man. And it tells us that we're going to get that as well. But we did not sell ourselves to these strange people, these Edomites, these so-called white people. It was the Hamites, that sold us. And I also want to show a map. We'll get it in a second. We'll get it in a second because I just remembered Salakia. I wanted to show a map, an ancient map of it's not that ancient, but an old map of Africa. And you look on the western part of Africa, there was a place called Negro land. Negro land was known. It was labeled Negro land because to some degree people were aware that those people that were dwelling over there were so-called Negros, which are Israelites, which comes from the word Hebrews, which comes from Hebrews, which is a short form for Hebrew. When you go into it, Hebrew, Hebrews, Negroes, and so it was known that those were so-called Negroes that was in that land. We fled over there from Roman persecution. That's how we got there, and that's what Esau doesn't tell us and tell the public. He doesn't tell the masses that the people that got sold to the so-called white man were not always in Africa. But we know that's a part of their deception in their lies. But the truth is coming out, man. So, it's time for Jake to really learn and to understand, who we are, man, because this African demon is a strong demon on Jake. So let's get this in Isaiah 9:16, because a lot of these guys coming out, like this guy, Ronald Dalton, it's almost like all of a sudden he's just this new prophet and there's a whole new doctrine out. But, the apostles and elders, going even back to Abba Bivens, which we believe is the prophet Elijah through the Spirit, coming back in the reincarnation. So going back to the 60s and 70s, leading up to now to the apostles and elders, really, 2007, early 2000s and the 90s, the truth has been growing. The truth has been being pushed, man, through them to the four corners of the earth, through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. And this guy comes all of a sudden with his documentary, which has a lot of disinformation, and all of a sudden, he's right and, the apostles' doctrine is wrong. We're just, but that's Jake, man. Jake that's just how they are, man. They follow what's popular. These are trendy Israelites. A lot of these new Israelites are waking up, although the elect will come out of them. A lot of them are just like these trendy Israelites that like to follow the trend and, like to be cool. So let's read this in Isaiah 9:16, and it reads, "For the leaders of this people cause them to err, and they that are led of them are destroyed," right? So these new leaders, these false prophets that Yahweh told us will come in the last days, are going to lead these Israelites to destruction, because that's really that's what it's about at the end of the day. These Jakes are getting led astray. These so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans that don't follow the doctrine of Great Millstone, the doctrine of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, they're going to get, their scriptures say what? My people are, roughly paraphrasing, my people are sheep led to the slaughter, something of that sort. They're sheep being, being guided right to the slaughter. They're just headed for destruction, and they can't even see it. So let's read this definition from the Zondervan's Compact Bible Dictionary. And I got this from the Elder Malcolm's video that he just recently did. And he's brought this out many a times, and so have several other brothers. But I want to put this on the screen and read it because, this goes to show you that this is known. These scholars know this. You know, and we'll get scripture as well to back it up. But it says, Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood, he became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negros, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. And those are Hermetic people. So there's a difference, man. We aren't Hermetic, you know. And let's get this in Exodus 11:7, and you know, keep in mind what did we just read? You know that basically the Negros, the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites are not the same people. So this is Exodus 11:7, and it reads, "But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast, that ye may know how the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel." So there's a difference, man. Although we have similar traits, dark skin, you know, woolly hair, whatever, we're different. We have a different spirit. We kind of have different features. You know, you can, like I said earlier, you can tell the difference between a pure African and an actual Negro. You know, and there's a lot of people get confused because there's a lot of Jake still in Africa because, one, we're scattered all over the 4 corners of the earth. But a lot of Jake that's, you know, or a lot of Nigerians, I should say, and a lot of people that are still in Africa are Israelites because we were there, man. You know, there were still a lot of Israelites over there after the transatlantic slave trade, so that the Israelite seed was still being spread there. So a lot of these guys, you see, you know, in the sports world, for example, like Joel Embiid, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think, Pascal Siakam, you know, there's a lot of them. You know, it's just, those are off the top of my head. Those are the guys I can think of. Oh, Jonathan Kuminga plays for the Golden State Warriors. Yeah, these guys, those are Israelites. You know, those are not Hamites. Those are not your actual. They grew up in Africa, but they're not. You know, they're not actual Africans. But that's a whole different lesson for another day. Numbers 1:18, dealing with the seed and how the seed is your nationality. But not to get too complicated, you see the Lord put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. So let me show you this map that I was talking about earlier. So you see, this is a map from like the mid 1700s, I think late 1600s as well. But this is a map that was done by his name was Herman Mall. You know, you could do your research on him, read up on him a little bit, but he was a pretty respected geographer and a couple other things as well. But he made a lot of maps, and this is, you know, this was it wasn't really common, but you know, this wasn't like uncommon either. For those who knew, you know, they'll put this on their map. And you see, this is the western part of Africa, and it says Negro land, you know, all throughout this mid, you know, section of Africa, going all the way to the west coast of it. And if you look at like a full map, you'll see that this is just, it's really all on the west coast. And it says Negro land. So already, based off what we read, you know, we can tell that those people who were dwelling in the western part of Africa that were sold to the so-called white men that came over there were not African people. So the Israelites in America, in the Americas, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, but particularly dealing with the Negroes, you know, we are Israelites. We are a different people. We come from the line of Shem. Our forefathers are Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So we're not the same people. We are the chosen seed of Yahweh by Shem Yahweh Shai. Because the Hamites weren't prophesied to go through this. It was the Israelites that were prophesied to go through this transatlantic slave trade. So let's get this in Joel, the 3rd chapter, real quick. So this is Joel 3:1. And obviously a precept to this is Deuteronomy 28 and 68, dealing with the Israelites would be sold to their enemies, on slave ships, and no man shall be able to buy you, meaning redeem you, save you from that captivity. So this is Joel 3:1, and it reads, "For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered amongst the nations and parted my land." And this is going to happen in this time. This is a future prophecy, because when the Lord is going to gather all these nations dealing with World War III in the Middle East, that's when he's going to intervene and judge them. And synonymously, the missiles are going to be shot off, and the elect is going to be delivered. The remnant, talked about in Isaiah the 10th chapter, and throughout the scriptures, the elect is going to be delivered in those chariots. Dealing with Revelation the 11th chapter, if I'm not mistaken. That's how we're going to get delivered. It's through those chariots, and this is a future prophecy, and that's what it's talking about. And that's another talking point that this guy Ronald Dalton was saying. The chariots aren't actual so-called UFOs. It's not, and he's also pushing Salakia. I'm recalling some of these points he was making. He was also pushing, just flee to Africa doctrine. That's kind of his like one of his things he's saying, which is not scriptural, and that's not going to save anybody from the destruction and judgment of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua. And we're not from Africa. We are not Africans. We're Israelites. Again, as we've been reading. But let's continue on. Verse 3. And it reads, "And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. And what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine?" These are Hamitic nations. These are Hamitic people. When you go into it, "Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense unto your own head, because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. The children of Judah, the children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, which are Edomites, that ye might remove them from far from their border." So these Hamitic nations, these Hamitic people, sold us to the Grecians. Those are Edomites when you go into it, right? And most Jake aren't going to do their diligent research and whatnot, but this is it's for the elect. Everything is for the elect at the end of the day. So let's finish this out. Verse 7, Joel 3:7. "Behold, I will raise them out of the place whither ye have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your own head." So there's judgment coming for these Hamites, these so-called Africans that Jake loves to be a part of so much. They just want to be African so damn bad. There's judgment coming to these Hamites for what they did, man. And that judgment is coming by way of slavery and building up the kingdom of heaven, in the kingdom when the Lord comes to set it up, to set up the throne of David on earth. These other nations as well, because all these other nations played a role in the downfall of the Israelites. So I want to get read another definition real quick. So this is from the Winston Simplified Dictionary, and let's get this is also from Elder Malcolm's video. He brings us out all the time. So let's read the definition for Ham here. And it says, "Ham, a son of Noah, and father of Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan." See further on each of these four. While they may have all been dark-skinned, they were not the forefathers of the Negroid races, but rather of peoples associated with Egypt in the north of the continent of Africa. The Egyptians thought of Canaan as one of their provinces even into very late times. So there you go. This is the scholars know, man. And it's also in the scriptures if you have the eyesight to discern and to see. And lining up prophecy, lining up, secular history with the Israelites, with the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and the prophecies in the scriptures, and the description, and the relics, and just the secular history. Like I said, it's the process of elimination. Every time leads to one group of people, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Those are the true children of Israel. And it's going to get to a point where everybody is going to know, everybody is going to understand this. And whether they heard or forbear, the Lord is going to deal with them accordingly. So, matter of fact, let's finish on that. And let's get Wisdom of Solomon. So this is Wisdom of Solomon 5, and starting at the top, and it reads, Then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him, and made no account of his labors. When they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear, and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all that they looked for. Right, because the salvation is going to be by way of those chariots, those so-called UFOs, beaming up the elect into the skies to get away, to deliver them from the destruction, the missiles that are about to obliterate the land of Babylon the Great, and the previous and the various other cities connected to NATO and the beast system. This is exactly what's going to happen. That's why these people are going to be looking, and they're going to have a very confused and just startled look on their face. Like, they're not going to be able to believe what they're seeing. But it's going to hit them that something is, they're going to come to a realization. So let's keep reading. Verse 3. And they repenting and groaning for anguish of spirit shall say within themselves, This was he whom we had sometimes in derision and a proverb of reproach. We fools accounted his life madness, and his end to be without honor. How is he numbered among the children of God, and his lot among the saints? So they're going to be like, these guys were the true prophets. These guys, it's going to be different levels. It's going to be so-called, so-called white people, Edomites. That's going to be these guys are the real Jews, as well as these other nations. They're going to be like, these are the real Israelites. These guys who we've pretty much been treating like shit for all these years and looked at them as nothing and just niggas, wetback spicks. These are the children of the Most High. And then there's going to be people, who know they're Israelites, that know they're Israelites, but that believe in a false way, a false doctrine. They're going to be like, these guys had the truth. These are the real prophets of the Lord. I should have followed them. It's going to be all kind of different perspectives of people coming to this realization. People you personally knew, if they make it that far, might I add, because there's going to be a whole bunch of death and destruction before this point even, takes place. But, there's going to be, as it's written, as we're reading, there's going to be people, still alive. So everybody's going to be at a loss for words, seeing the truth, man, or seeing the true elect, the true prophets of the Lord, the true people of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua being delivered. But there's also going to be members of the elect that look like other nations. But that's another lessons for another day. But that doesn't mean they're that nation. That means their seed line goes back to that of an Israelite. So it's going to be, these people are going to be, confounded ultimately right before they're judged. The Lord is going to give them the realization right before their judgment. So let's read this last verse and close it out. Wisdom of Solomon 5 and 6, and it reads, Therefore have we erred from the way of the truth, and the light of righteousness have not shined unto us, and the sun of righteousness rose not upon us. So they're going to come to that realization that they They were confused. They believed in a false way. They were wrong. They're gonna realize they were wrong, and their judgment is about to hit. And Lord willing, would be a part of the number that be delivered, but that's how it's gonna go down. So, yeah, man, Lord willing, the point was made and it did what it was supposed to do. But we're not Africans, man. We are Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. We are the children of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, the true name of the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son. Right? So I'm going to close out, give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, Bashem Rakakwadash, Shalom, Kwam Yasharala, and the Bible Ball.